Yo! What is up, my beach-looking people? My name is Frank here on Beach Looking Guy, and welcome back. Welcome all my 3,000 subscribers. How did I get 3,000 subscribers? I haven't even uploaded in like 3 months. I make like 1.5 videos a year, and I got 3,000. 3,000 ain't that much, but it's a lot for me. Just doing this kind of for fun, trying to teach people how to skim and stuff. So, wow, just thank you. If you're a new sub, if you're an old sub, all 3,000 of you, that's awesome. So thank you. I just wanted to say that. But yeah, here we are with a new video today. And I'm so excited to talk about this because I think you guys, if you've watched any of my videos, you probably know that I love talking about drops. The good old drop, and how important I think it is to really becoming a good skimboarder. I think your drop is going to be your bread and butter and going to really determine whether or not you are going to be able to catch good waves and skim well. So today's new video is going to be again about the drop. What else is new? So we got a little Reddit post that I wanted to kind of dig into and discuss with you guys to kind of maybe bring up some new insights into drops that we haven't really talked about before. Now, first of all, I just want to mention, guys, I've been working on a project of mine. It's kind of like a little merchandise brand for skimboarding and just kind of water sports in general. And so you can kind of see one of my designs back here. It's a towel with my Skimboard Island logo. I've made some hats with my Stoke Boat logo and even some t-shirts with some skimboarding designs. So if you're interested, check out my merch. It's all skimboarding themed and just board sports lifestyle theme. So go ahead, check that out for me. If you want to show some support, grab something, share it with your friends maybe, and just check it out because I've been working really hard on it and I'd really like to share it with you guys. So anyways, back to the subject. So we got a post that I found on Reddit that I wanted to kind of go through and discuss the ins and outs here. So this is kind of a controversial subject people bring up time to time, and you kind of have two sides to this coin. You got your people that are really adamant about what they do, and then you have people who have tried other things and kind of feel a little differently. So I kind of want to break down both sides of this story and give my point of view. I have a very strong opinion on drops, and I think I can provide a lot of insight into drops that most people don't have because, first of all, I've been skimboarding for roughly 20 years, and I started in South Florida. Me, being in Florida in just an area that's not exactly known for any type of skimboarding, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a big pro community or a big community in general. I was just kind of going down to the beach and doing what I liked to do. And so I was never really taught from any point how to do a certain technique. It was all kind of just go for it and learn from there on your own. And there really wasn't any kind of process or teaching. So for most people, I think a lot of people, especially these days, they have some sort of mentor. They have somebody that's going to kind of teach them what to do, what might work best. And so from my perspective, I had to really grind through all of the drops. Basically, I started off just skimboarding in a creek or a lagoon, I guess you could call it, skimboarding in a lagoon that had a very low tide. It would just kind of set up nice for this little plane of water, and I had a boogie board, and I would just skimboard with my boogie board across this very shallow sandbar. And this type of skimming ultimately was just easy to learn doing a front foot first style drop. And not even just a front foot first style drop. It was the style of drop where you throw the board way out in front of you, you chase after it as fast as you can, and you lunge onto it and go sliding along. And that was kind of where I started. And once you kind of start getting more into skimming, going to the beach, using actual skim boards and such, you're probably going to start to realize that that technique isn't really helping you, and it might be a good idea to switch it up a little bit. So after many months or maybe even years of just the throw it out and chase after it technique, I started to think maybe I should shorten my drop. So eventually I started learning a one step front foot first drop. So basically taking out the whole throwing the board technique and really trying to just drop it directly under my feet and get on it in one step. Now, I eventually learned this technique and it instantly elevated me to a new level. It was way better, and I stuck with it for many years and just did a one step I did a one step front foot first drop for many years, and it worked. I didn't really have any problems, except I always pulled my groin, or just had a sore groin muscle. I would always strain it really badly. And so literally after many, many, many years of straining my groin every day, skimming for hours with a strained groin, leaving the beach just in pain. I would skim all day with a sore groin, leave the beach barely even able to walk off of the beach. It was just so sore, and I did this for a long time. It wasn't exactly fun. I made the best of it and did have fun, but at the end of the day, I was hurting. And so after a while, I kind of got more into watching skimboarding on the internet when YouTube became a big thing, and I wanted to keep progressing, and I was studying these videos and watching pros from out here in California and stuff, and I couldn't help but notice how good their drop was, how smooth and fast their drop was, and what they were able to achieve. And eventually I kind of studied it and figured out what exactly they were doing, and it was they weren't doing the big hip articulation to bring their front foot around and get on the board front foot first. They were actually doing a one step back foot first. It looked amazing to me. Every time I'd watch it on video, I was just mind blown. So eventually I started to tell myself, this is what I need to learn. Like, this looks like it's working really great for these guys. I think if I learn this technique, it might work great for me too. But it was kind of one of those things where I had just been doing front foot first for so long. I had progressed to a point where, it was kind of annoying to stop what I was good at and relearn muscle memory and confidence in a whole new technique. So it took a long time for me to finally force myself to learn a new drop. And so eventually I spent about a week at a timeshare on the beach. My family would go to a little timeshare on the beach for a week, and I basically told myself, hey, I'm on the beach for a whole week. Let me just commit this entire week to learning back foot first. And so I did, and by the end of the week, I was loving it. It took me just about that whole week. By the end of the week, I was pretty confident. My muscle memory was getting down, and I instantly noticed, again, another huge jump in my technique and in my skill. It felt like I was getting way better water drops. My side slips were easier. I was getting out further, hitting the waves with so much more speed. And so there I had transitioned from my front foot first into a back foot first drop. fast forward a couple more years, maybe many more years, probably about 6 to 8 more years, let's say, I came out to California and I was, doing my thing with back foot first, and it was great. I loved it, but I was still having groin issues. I would still get a sore groin, and even more so, I would pull my groin really bad to the point where I couldn't skim. I couldn't even run if I pulled my groin. And it was starting to really bother me because this has been going on for years and years, and I couldn't really keep doing this. Like, it would be sore all the time, or I would pull it all the time. And so one point I pulled my groin and I couldn't skim. It was really bad. I pulled it on a really good session. I had to stop skimming that session, and I basically came down to the beach a few days later, forgot that I pulled my groin because it was feeling better. Like, the pain isn't there unless you're skimming on it, and I hadn't been skimming on it for like a day and a half, so the pain wasn't there, and I kind of forgot about it. I went down to the beach, I started skimming, and instantly was like, wow, this hurts. I can't skim today. I just drove all the way across town, came down excited to skim at a beautiful beach, and here I am in pain thinking, oh, I can't skim today. Well, I had kind of been dabbling with crawl drops, and so I was, in this situation where I couldn't really do what I was good at. And I thought, well, I'm really interested in crawl drops. I had seen other skimboarders that are really, really good at crawl drops, and they were just doing things that I could never fathom doing on a skimboard. Let's just be real. I saw these guys getting crazy drops in spots that just blew my mind. They were dropping the board in spots that I was looking at, not even considering dropping on, and these guys were going for it. So I definitely had this idea in my head, like, hey, this drop definitely looks really good. I didn't really want to do the whole take 2 steps back and learn another drop again. But here I was at the beach, not able to skim how I would like to skim, and so I said, let me try some crawl drops. And the thing was, my groin was hurt to the point where I couldn't even sprint. Like, I was limited to basically a very, very light jog. And even in that, I couldn't push off of my leg, because that push would strain it and hurt it a lot. So I started messing with crawl drops this day, and instantly noticed that a crawl drop didn't hurt my groin in the same way that a regular standing drop was giving me. I was having a ton of pain with a regular drop, but crawl dropping didn't hurt at all. It kind of opened my eyes to this new technique that could potentially not hurt my groin. I mean, if it's not hurting right now while it's actually strained, then there's a good chance that I probably won't even strain it at all in this type of technique. So basically, at that moment, I was limited to either not skimming, just going home and sitting out and waiting for my groin to get better, or I could go half speed and just crawl drop and mess around with that and at least get to ride my skimboard instead of sitting at home. So I kind of just said, screw it, I'm going to stick with this crawl drop, just keep messing with it, maybe I'll get better with it. And over time, I kept straining my groin or whatever, and I would have to resort back to the crawl drop. And over time, I just kept getting better and better and better at it. And then eventually one day, I was really getting crawl drops down. I got my speed down pretty good. I was hitting pretty deep water, and I was getting out to waves almost like I had never gotten to waves before. And this instantly changed my whole perspective on the drop, and I was mind blown at how fast I could get to waves, the amount of speed I could carry through a wrap, and just how deep and under control I could drop my board. And so basically at that moment, I was committed to getting even better and better and better at the crawl drop to the point where I'm at now, which, to be fair, I'd never seen my skimboarding going to this level before, and I almost am 100% certain that it's due to changing to a drop that not only fits my style better, but it's just a very powerful drop. It gives you a lot of leverage and the ability to launch yourself forward. So at this certain point, I was convinced crawl drop was the best. I was skimming like I never skimmed before. And, people were telling me like, wow, you're doing really good all of a sudden. And I couldn't help but feel like I also just got really good at my crawl drop. So it really elevated my skimboarding to another level, I feel like. And so at this point in the video, I really want to talk to you about the difference in the drops that you can do and whether or not those drops are better or worse. There's a little bit of a debate whether or not back foot first drops are better than front foot, and if crawl drops are better than those two or whatever, So everyone kind of has their own idea on drops, and I think it's a really interesting discussion because most people haven't went through all of the drops, especially to the point to where they got really good at that drop. Most people might try back foot first. If they're a front foot first skimmer, they might try back foot first, but it's not something they really allow themselves to get good at and see if there's a difference. So they try back foot first and they have a hard time with it because the confidence and muscle memory isn't there. So they go right back to their front foot first. And then they'll never really have a great opinion on if one was actually better than the other. So I think I have a very good perspective in that I went from one of the most basic drops you can have, which is throwing it all the way down the beach and chasing after it, to learning that same front foot first technique as in a one-step variation, then switching that to a back foot one-step variation, and then switching that to a crawl drop. So over the years, I've been able to master each one and really feel and see the difference in my ability to skim. And so that's where I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective and way of discussing this type of topic. So there's this Reddit post that popped up, and this type of question pops up a lot. People trying to figure out which drop is best. And so this one popped up recently on the skimboarding subreddit, and I found it an interesting opportunity to kind of bring up all of the things, all of the little things that people like to mention and talk about, and give my personal perspective on why they might be right, why they might be wrong. Okay, so we have this Reddit post here, and it's going to be talking about one-step drop variations. This person's asking, I've seen some good people that can catch waves step onto the board front foot first, like a skater would get on their board. I'm wondering what the pros and cons of this are. I feel like this technique would force you to mount the board from the rear, which would be ideal in terms of conserving your forward momentum. But does the initial pressure on the front of the board cause more loss in momentum than a typical rear foot one-step drop? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and kind of dissect this first paragraph and then move on. So here he says that he's seen people who can catch waves step onto the board front foot first, and they refer to a skateboarder. And so one thing that front foot first really comes from, I feel like, is people who have previously been on skateboards. If you ride a skateboard and you don't ride Mongo, if you don't know, Mongo on a skateboard is when your back foot, the foot that's on the tail of the board, stays on the board when you push yourself on a skateboard. Most of the time, people's front foot stays on the board and they push with their back foot. When you push with your front foot, it's called Mongo. And it's kind of frowned upon amongst the skating community. It's like the front foot first of the skating community. And the thing is just like skimboarding, there are amazing skaters that skate Mongo. But the thing is not too many of them. The mass majority of great skaters skate non-Mongo. So this person's kind of bringing up a point about how skating correlates to skimming and where this drop might come from. It's kind of easier to learn because it's just a more natural way to get on the board, especially if you don't have someone teaching you. You're probably taking the board and throwing it out in front of you, chasing after it, and jumping on a board after chasing after it is way more comfortable and natural doing it in a front foot first style than a back foot. So most people who learn in this type of way, skimboarding, they usually will develop a front foot first technique because of this. So then they ask, if this technique hinders skimming, if the front foot first technique hinders skimming distance, then I'll stick to the traditional rear foot drop. Any insight appreciated. So this person just wants to know, hey, is doing a front foot first drop going to make it harder for me to side slip and stuff compared to a back foot first drop? And now we're going to kind of go through the answers that he got from the community here on the Reddit, and we're going to just talk about what some people say and give some counter examples and stuff to kind of give you an idea of what might be best. So we have our first response here, and this type of response is good for people who aren't really trying to be an amazing skimboarder. If you're just going out every couple months, you have a little woody board or boogie board or the cheapest board you could get, and you only use it every 2 to 3 months, and you go down to the beach and you just mess around for 30 minutes or an hour or something, this type of response is good for you. But if you're really, really trying to progress in this sport, if you want to make a name for yourself in this sport, it's not exactly the best answer in my opinion. So this person replies with, do whatever feels comfortable, safe, fast, and efficient to you. Don't listen to anyone else. Even though the skim community is mostly back foot first, the top ranked skimmers in the world nearly 50-50 split between back foot and front foot. There are objectively pros and cons to each style, but they don't matter because your best drop is what you prefer. And again, this is great for someone who just wants to go out and mess around on their skimboard. They don't care about being a big named or just a highly skilled skimboarder. So that's the type of response this is for. This isn't for somebody who really wants to get skimming. And my channel, what I talk about, my content is to help people become the best skimboarder they can. I'm not just going to tell you to go out and do whatever's fun, because that's not what's going to get you better. We can all go out and just have fun every day, but it's another thing to really become a better skimboarder. So let's break this down here. Do whatever feels comfortable and safe, blah, blah, blah to you. Yes, okay, at a baseline, this is your baseline, okay? Being comfortable and safe, okay? That's your baseline. But at the end of the day, if you want to progress, if you want to push yourself, staying in your little comfortable, safe bubble isn't going to get you any better. So, this type of response really isn't even answering the question. It's just telling you do whatever's fun and safe, which I don't believe is really going to get you to become better, because at the end of the day, I don't think I became the skimboarder that I am because I was staying comfortable and safe all the time. Literally every skim session, I push myself to the limits. I get out of my comfort zone, and I kind of hit waves and do things that are a little more sketchier than what I normally do. And this is how I feel like I become better, by getting out of my comfort zone, by pushing my limits. But you got to do it in a smart way. You don't want to go 5 levels up. You just want to go 1 level up. Push yourself to the very next little level. You don't want to be going 3 levels out of your comfort zone. Just go 1 level out of your comfort zone. So, doing this and not listening to anyone else, I don't think you're going to get any better in that way. You're going to be stuck at a wall. You're going to reach a wall of being in your little bubble, and you're basically probably never going to get out of it. You're never ever going to get out of your little comfort bubble. So if you're just going out and having a good time at your 1 monthly visit to the beach, this is a good strategy. If you're really trying to get better and you can go to the beach all the time and get the hours and board time in, kind of getting out of your little bubble is going to really help probably get you further along than just staying comfortable and safe. So you got to figure out what type of skimming you want to do. Do you want to just go out and mess around, or do you really want to progress? If you want to mess around, stay comfortable and safe. If you really want to progress, you might have to breach those gonna pop out of those bubbles at some point here and there. So let's move on. He says, even though the skim community is mostly back foot first, top ranked skimmers in the world are nearly 50-50 split. This, I've never done the math. I haven't tallied up who's back foot, who's front foot, but from what I see, a lot of East Coast skimboarders down in Florida and stuff, a lot of them learn how to do front foot first. But out here in California, in Southern California, and Laguna Beach, where the waves are really pumping, it's an amazing skimboarding area. There's a huge community out here. There's tons of really good riders. I would say almost 75% of them skim back foot first. I'm not sure about the 50-50 thing. I feel like most of them definitely skim back foot first. So moving on, there are objectively pros and cons to each style, but they don't matter because your best drop is whatever you prefer. Again, it goes kind of back to one of those things. Do you want to really get better, or are you just going out to have fun? The pros and cons to these drops definitely matter. They most definitely matter, because if you want to catch a certain type of wave, I really don't think you'll be able to do it just by having a front foot first drop. I do, in my experience, in my 20 years and thousands of hours standing on the beach, I definitely see a big difference in crawl dropping, especially over a front foot first drop. Your best drop is whatever you prefer. I don't know really how to respond to that. Your best drop is whatever you prefer. I preferred back foot first drops, but I learned crawl drops, and now I prefer crawl drops. So if it's kind of hard for me to look back and say, okay, I preferred back foot first at one point. Because I learned a different one, I've changed my preference. So that's how this is kind of weird. You can change your preference if you put the time into practicing and learning it. So having a preference is kind of irrelevant. Your preference doesn't make a good drop. A good drop makes a good drop. So this kind of just avoids the whole question. Here we go. Let's move on from that comment. We have a response saying that they think there's more back foot first pros than there are front foot first pros. So they go on to say most of the big name pros, past and present, have been back foot first. This kind of goes back, like, there are guys who are insanely good at front foot first drops. They are. And that, I'm not trying to say that they need to change. I do believe that if they did change, they would probably become even better skimboarders. But these guys have really dialed in front foot first drops. But the thing is I think the dialing in the front foot first drop to the point of these guys takes more skill than it does to dial in a back foot first drop. You'll have to work harder and have more finesse to get a good front foot first drop than you would need to get a good back foot first drop. That's just how I feel. I think front foot first is harder to perfect than a back foot first drop. So, yeah, anyone can kind of refer to these handful of people. I mean, literally a handful of guys you're going to refer to kind of defend your position on front foot first. But I do believe that these guys could be even better if they learned a back foot first technique. All right, so we're going to just pass some of the responses to these. I'm just going to go off of some of the main ones that I think add some good stuff here. So we have the next response says, I'm a very good skateboarder. I learned front foot first skimming because of this. Again, going back to skating, a lot of people ride a skateboard before they skimboard, and therefore it's more natural to get on a skimboard like you would a skateboard, which is front foot first. So they go, so the next thing they say, at a certain point, I completely topped out at how far I could plane and my ability to water drop. And this was very much how I felt when I was doing front foot first. I felt like I was being held back, and a lot of it all started with my drop. I was trying to figure out how I could get further out and faster, but it seemed like my drop just wasn't letting me. So this person kind of felt the same way. They felt like they had topped out and they had hit a wall. I call this type of thing hitting a wall, or a skill cap, where you hit a certain point that you're not really progressing anymore. You're kind of just doing the same motions and not getting more speed, not getting bigger, better waves. You're just topped out. And so this guy's explaining how they felt topped out with their front foot first. Then they go on to say, I forced myself to learn back foot and became much, much better. Now, this is interesting because I had mentioned some people don't try to back foot first, especially good. They might try to back foot first, but they don't allow themselves to get better at it, and so they just go right back to doing front foot first. And then they can't really say that one is better than the other because they haven't perfected the back foot first to say that it's better than the front foot first. So this guy here is saying that he started doing back foot first, and they mention that they became much, much better. Now, this type of wording is very important, as they're not being vague. They're not on the fence about how they feel. They literally said much, much better, meaning they are fully convinced and aware of how the back foot first drop benefited them. It made them much, much better. So I think that's a really good point to bring up here, is that you're going to see a lot of this, where someone actually transitioned to back foot first and is saying with confidence how much better they got, where basically not even going to see one single person say, yeah, I was a back foot first, and then I switched to front foot first, and I got better. There's actually not a single person talking about how they went from back foot first to front foot first. Everybody goes from front foot first to back foot first. So I think that alone is something that really should point out how good a back foot is over a front foot. Most cases, people will tell you they got better once they transition to back foot. They kind of go on to explain more about how the back foot first can benefit you more. The more you weigh, the more back foot is superior because you don't sink forward as you hit the water. And then again, that's the thing, is where when you jump on the board front foot first, you tend to put a lot of pressure down on the nose and it makes you sink. This type of response here, I don't like these types of responses because they are not at all helping answer the question or bring light, like bring information. If you're going to answer this question, bring some information that people can really grab on. And so this guy says, comfort and confidence dictate my drop. Comfort and confidence should be all a part of your drop, but it shouldn't dictate having a crummy drop. You don't want to do a bad drop your whole skimboarding career just because that's what you're comfortable with. If you can become better by getting out of your comfort zone and learning something new, eventually you will become comfortable and confident with another drop. So this idea of just sticking with whatever you're comfortable with, it's going to limit you. It's going to hold you back, because I've never just stuck with what I was comfortable with. I was always searching for what's next, what's better, and pushing myself outside those comfort zones to get to that level. So this type of thing of just being in your comfort zone, you're going to reach a wall and you're never going to get any better. So again, this is one of those things where it's like, if you're going to just go out and mess around and have fun at the beach for the 1 or 2 days of the month or the year that you go, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Stay in your comfort zone and have fun in there. But if you're really trying to get better, you're going to need to come out of that comfort zone. You're going to need to test your ability to do something that you're not confident with. Otherwise, you're going to reach a limit and you're going to tap out. And that's it. Simple as that. I've done it and I've realized that I was in my comfort zone. I needed to try something new to get out of that comfort zone and to progress. And at the end of the day, I did. So I don't believe in this whole stay in your comfort zone and that's it. If you're going to get better, you need to get out of your comfort zone. Plain and simple. Then they go on to say, I'm front foot first. Of course, this type of comment, again, comes from a front foot first who hasn't even tried getting better at another drop. So I hold the board like I'm regular, but I ride goofy, so I have to do a wonky hip switch. And again, here he's describing his drop as wonky. It's a wonky hip switch drop. Like, why would you give information trying to tell someone what's better and worse, meanwhile describing what you do as wonky? It's not good information towards answering the question. You're just kind of solidifying like that your front foot first drop is wonky. And, again, they finish with whatever works, LOL. Like, if we all just lived our lives doing whatever works, LOL, how far would we get in life? Whatever works is not a good means to get by in life. You want to progress in life, and that means searching and trying for new things, not just sticking with whatever works because you don't want to take the time to go outside of your comfort zone. Okay, the next response we have is Another one that's just not advocating for front foot first. I'm trying to figure out why people respond when they haven't really tried. Like, they haven't really tried, and they still find it necessary to give an opinion. It's just kind of weird to me. So anyways, we'll go on. Here we are. Honestly, I don't think there's a big enough difference between the two to justify one over the other. Just do whatever drop you think you'll be more comfortable with and work on getting speed with that, and you'll be good. It's very vague. It's kind of right, but kind of wrong. There is a difference, and I do think it's worth learning one over the other. Again, this is another one of those responses where it's for people who aren't really trying to get better. It's just for people who want to go out and skimboard. Whatever, that's fine. And if that's your plan, follow this advice. If you're trying to get better and you really, really want to become a better skimboarder, this is not good advice. So here we got an interesting one. This is a big one. And one thing that I kind of want you guys to see is that you'll kind of notice some of these smaller responses are all from people who are talking about staying in your comfort zone, and it's probably not worth it, and I skim front foot first. Those are all the small responses. It's interesting because here we have a pretty large response, and it's an advocate for back foot first. And I think it really goes to show what there is to be said about back foot first. When one of the first people really advocating for back foot first writes a big paragraph telling you why, and not just saying stay comfortable and safe. So let's see what this says. This is a controversial subject because once people learn to drop a certain way, it's really hard to change it after the fact. This is true. People don't want to stop doing what they're good at to learn a new drop. So a lot of people are stuck in old ways, and they don't have a good opinion on back foot first because they're not learning it. So you'll see a lot of people saying that it doesn't matter, do what's most comfortable, etc. They're wrong. And the people saying this are basically always people stepping on front foot first. The truth is, back foot first is objectively better for a lot of reasons. If you are learning, it is absolutely in your best interest to try and force yourself to learn back foot first. Similar to someone else that posted here, I actually used to do front foot first and quickly realized that basically everyone that was any good, minus a very select few, were all getting on back foot first. So I forced myself to relearn, and boy, did it make a huge difference. Everything was so much better and smoother. Again, we're kind of coming back to someone actually learning back foot first and seeing and feeling the differences and having a very good argument as to why. They're not just saying this stick to your comfort zone. They're literally breaking down in a paragraph their experiences and why they believe these things. They're not just going off of how they feel. So let's go on. I would actually closely compare it to the whole Mongo thing with skating. Pushing Mongo doesn't mean you can't be a good skater, but at the same time, no one reasonable is really arguing that it isn't inferior. The only people arguing that it isn't inferior are the people doing it. You'll see the same thing here. This person really speaks to me and has said basically a lot of what I've already said. You have a big explanation here on why they feel back foot first is better. So I think this is a good response here, really kind of pointing out a lot of things that I've already pointed out. Now we got one last response here. Usually I'll do the front foot first when there is a thin layer of water because I feel my weight is more with the direction of the board, but only in thin water. In thicker water, I do back foot first because if I do front foot first, my board always drops into the water and I become a submarine. Too long, didn't read. Front foot first for little bit of water, back foot first for more water. I don't really think at any point you should be doing both. First of all, doing both is going to mess with your muscle memory. There's a difference between doing both crawl drop and back foot first drop. Because they're so similar, they're both back foot first drops. It's just one of them you crawl to get on instead of just drop it. But when it comes to a front foot first and a back foot first, I don't think there's any reason at all you should be switching between the two for different water thicknesses. My opinion, back foot first is going to be smoother and easier for both situations. This water thickness thing is something very personal to this person. I don't think it is something you should try or anyone should try to incorporate. Switching between both drops is going to mess up your muscle memory, especially if you're not a pro and you're going to be constantly trying to get a little better at each one instead of dialing one of them in. So this response doesn't really give any answer either. It doesn't really tell you which one's better, and they suggest that you just juggle between the two depending on how deep the water that you're dropping on is. So I think if you look at this thread, it really shows there really isn't an advocate for front foot first drops. The only advocacy for a front foot is just saying, hey, stick with what you like, with what you're comfortable with. And that doesn't lead to progression. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to try doing new things that are hard and sketchy if you want to get better. You can't just stay in your comfort zone all day and become an amazing skimmer. It's going to take a lot of pushing yourself and examining what you need to do to get to the next level. So we have reached the end of this thread, and what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how good a front foot first is over a back foot first? I find this topic interesting. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone skims a different type of beach, but in my experiences, there is no competition between the two drops, really. And even when it comes to back foot first and front foot first, there's also still other drops like crawl drop, which I think crawl drop is even more superior to just back foot first drops. So if you're really not trying to pursue skimming as a big, huge thing for yourself, then this whole idea of going out and not caring and doing what you're comfortable with is great. And everyone that wants to do that, I'm not going to sit and bash anybody that drops front foot first. I have great friends that drop front foot first. I have seen great skimboarders that drop front foot first, and I don't have anything against them. There's no competition here. But I do feel like there is a bigger difference between someone being able to drop back foot first over front foot first. I truly believe that anyone advocating for a front foot first drop hasn't tried the other drops. And have any of you actually went from a back foot first drop to a front foot first drop? That would be really interesting to hear, because I don't think I've ever heard of it or seen of it before. So that's pretty much it, talking about drops and which one is better. What do you think is better? I'd like to hear down below in the comments. That's going to be it. I hope you guys are doing great. Summer's coming, and I kind of wanted to drop a little something before summer so you can guys get the wheels turning and maybe switch up that front foot first drop to something else. So that's going to be it. I really appreciate you guys watching. This was a bit of a long one. I like long videos, what can I say? So that's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you have a great day. Get out there, tear it up. Peace.